Since the time the preliminary report has been out, multiple attempts have essentially been made to pin the blame on the pilots. Even before a final report is out, some Western media have already speculated that it could be because of a pilot error. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight on This Is Exclusive, for the first time ever, coursemate of Captain Sumeet Sabharwal, someone who has taken on Air India on multiple occasions. In fact, there have been multiple litigations that he has been fighting with Air India. Captain Kanani is joining us on this broadcast. Captain Kanani, thank you very much for speaking to Republic TV. This is for the first time that you've decided to finally break the silence. And I believe it is extremely important that the pilots speak in one voice. Today, the Pilot Association has taken on the Western media when they're making all attempts to protect the giants here, Boeing in particular. And the fact that even before a report is out, they're already pinning the blame on the pilots. I want to first begin by asking you, you've known Captain Sumeet Sabharwal for a while. I want to know a little bit more about Captain Sumeet Sabharwal and your association with him.
Okay. So we were together in the same academy. We were trained together in the same batch way back in 1991. We were in the Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Academy, Fursatganj, Raebareli. That was specially open to recruit pilots into Indian Airlines and Air India at that point of time. And he came out as a very mature and a sober person amongst the pilots that I have known. So he would probably, not, if they are trying to blame him, I would still not believe that.
Why so? When you say that like there is a, when they're trying to blame the senior pilot, and today one of the report is categorically making a mention of the senior pilot here, because the cockpit voice recorder, which has been placed on record in the preliminary report, does not make a mention of who was speaking to whom, whether it was the senior pilot who was asking that question, who was responding, we do not know. But the Wall Street Journal, it appears, knows exactly what's really happening, because they are being fed with certain information. When you say that I refuse to believe that Captain Sabharwal was at fault, why do you say that?
Okay, so basically, Wall Street Journal may have some extra data if they have got, but there is nothing of that sort mentioned in the report of the Accident Investigation Board. And it is not clear from that board, there is not enough data for them to blame it on the pilots, whoever the WSJ feels or wherever the Western media feels that it's the pilot who has done it. Because one is that if I want to really put the aircraft down, then I am the commander. I can do it at my time when there is nobody sitting in the cockpit. And I can, the cockpit door, once it gets locked, I can have that aircraft to myself. I don't need to do it at a time when I'm taking off. And it's a very high workload period during takeoff. We are involved in monitoring the instruments and seeing how the aircraft is progressing. At that point of time, nobody would be interested in thinking of doing this, because the other person is constantly monitoring you or watching you, what you are doing, and you are always confirming each other's actions. So where is the question of these things doing? Although they had a comment that who did this, who switched off the fuel switches, but it is not possible for anybody to believe that those fuel switches are being switched off without the other person knowing. So it's a natural question. It came that, how did the switches go off? Who's done it? So I don't think so, and it's not humanly possible from what I have seen on your channel, that it was, both the switches were switched off within a fraction of a second.
Right.
You cannot switch off both the switches within a fraction of a second. You have to actually lift the switch and move it to close. And deliberately it has to be done. It takes time. These are spring-loaded switches which are put in certain slots. Now, if they have not moved back, then they're not even saying in the report that whether it's the switches that have actually fallen back or just the switches have remained in the same position, but the valves, their solenoid valves or their electrical circuit has got some wiring problem because of which that is switched off the fuel control, fuel to the engine. They have not mentioned that. So AIB is not giving any supporting information in that sense.
Right.
Secondly, AIB is a part of MOCA, Ministry of Civil Aviation. It's another branch of MOCA, just like DGCA is. Both are controlled by Ministry of Civil Aviation. I feel this is a ploy of the government, Ministry of Civil Aviation, to not get these aircrafts grounded all over the world. If there was actually this thing, they are not giving
So,
enough data in the initial report.
I want to also,
And
since you're making this point about the report and the fact that a question that we had raised before the Ministry of Civil Aviation as well as AAIB, if you remember page number 15, the last point that was made, which is almost like a clean chit that was given to Boeing as well as GE. And we raised this question then, that what was the need for doing this? If you are not very sure what really happened, then why is it that you would make this kind of a statement giving almost a clean chit, which means no recommendations have been made against the manufacturers? And somewhere down the line, that raises more questions about the role of the Ministry of Civil Aviation as well as the DGCA.
I agree with you, very true, because they are trying to make it very clear that at this stage we don't want to blame the Boeing or Air India. Otherwise, they would have to ground the aircrafts. It would result in a lot
But
of
Captain Kanani,
loss.
some experts are saying that it is okay because this is a preliminary report. Since I do not have enough data, enough evidence, so I'm not making any any recommendation. In fact, we were being
No, no,
questioned
but
as to
then,
why are we
correct.
making
But at the
hullabaloo
same time,
over this entire issue.
okay, yeah, at the same time, if I am saying something that there is not enough data to blame the pilots, then why is the Western media blaming the pilots at this stage? Just because they have this line out there, and what if they find out tomorrow that they have enough data that this has happened because of the fault of the machinery or maybe certain maintenance procedures not followed? What if they find out tomorrow? Are they going to, why did they put this line? It should have been kept open. They have actually closed that contention that it cannot be a fault with the machinery by putting that line, which is not correct. They have to keep that contention open. And I feel DGCA is always involved in suppressing data. I will tell you in my case, I have gone to court. I have said that you're not carrying enough oxygen in the aircraft, and in case if there is a depressurization, the passengers will not be able to survive that incident, and the aircraft will not be able to come down to 10,000 feet within those 12 minutes. I have proved that in court, after which Air India had to file by consent. Air India and DGCA were forced to file by consent that reinvestigate my complaint. They were fined 1.1 crore. But after that, these flights are still going on, and they're still going on as of date. Those illegal flights, which are putting the lives of lakhs of people in danger, they're still going on even till date. Are they waiting for another incident or an accident to happen? And they have ordered an inquiry. The court has ordered an inquiry, but yet they are not ready to give me the initial evidentiary documents which they have come up with the inquiry, their own inquiry. I have told the court that look, they have faltered. They have actually not looked at the documents properly. In
Okay.
my case, they are not giving me the evidentiary documents for me to give my submissions to the DGCA from my side,
Right.
and they have shut the inquiry now without my involvement. Because I told them first, you
So
give me the documents,
it's
let me
almost
study
like
those
a
documents, and
pattern.
let's have a proper inquiry.
It's almost like a pattern, Captain Kanani, that target the pilots because they wouldn't have enough backing here. And it's easy because they would be the scapegoat at any given point in time. I want to perhaps now bring your attention to the timeline. First, when the report is published around 1:30 in the morning. Second, with
Correct.
regards to how the preliminary report was worded, There is no time stamp as far as the CVR is concerned, which is the cockpit voice recording. I'm given to understand even if a pin falls inside the cockpit, the CVR basically gets hold of that.
Oh yeah, it is
And the
very
fact
powerful
here is
because there are
that the
three or
fact here
four
is that
channels.
all of it is done in such a manner that you have the big fish here being going completely scot-free, because all this while there was no word as far as the 2018 FAA advisory is concerned, the 2015 advisory that was issued by the UK safety advisory, then 2025 when it was re-uploaded again. All of it basically indicates to the fact that there is a possibility, it is not fail-safe. These switch control systems are not fail-safe. There is a possibility that there could be a transition that could take place, and that is the reason why these advisories were issued. Keeping that in mind, can we really come to any sort of conclusion at this stage about a pilot error and the timeline, the timings of all of that is happening, moving towards only one thing: save someone, protect someone?
I agree. In this case, it's not about blaming the pilots. It's more about blaming. It's more about saving the airline. So in the end, if you remove the aircraft manufacturer and the airline, then who's left in the equation? It's the pilots. So basically, DGCA is always trying to save Air India, and they are always in collusion with Air India. And I can say this on TV because they have done that in my case. And I went to court for that. That they are trying to save Air India and they have fined them only for one flight, whereas they have done thousands of flights today and they're still doing it. And DGCA is looking the other way. It is like a person is doing rash and negligent driving every day, but DGCA has caught them because I've just gone and complained and they've just charged them for a no parking fine and let them go. And still the things are happening. So this is why I went to court. And even today, when the court has reordered an investigation, the DGC is not ready to give me all the documents. Why? If the inquiry has to be held on the principles of natural justice, give me all the data. In the same way, they should have come out with all the data in the CVR. They should have come out with some credible data in the FDR, whatever is recorded, with exact timings to come to a conclusion that Boeing or the aircraft manufacturer or their maintenance procedures are not responsible. Without that, just putting that last line makes no sense. Really makes no sense. They are hiding a lot of data, and that is what they've done in my case also. So it is a pattern. I agree. And it is
What?
a pattern to save the airline from losses. And the airline is doing it at the cost of putting lakhs of people's of lives in danger. Then why did the other airlines like Etihad and Korean Air and all these have ordered checks on their fuel switches? Why did the DGCA come out with an order later that please, it's an order. It's not just a suggestion or it's not something. It's mandatory that you please check your fuel switches. They've come out with some circular. It's an order. So why do they need to do that? If there was no need to come out with an order,
Right.
then they should have thought, okay, it's okay. All these things happen, but we don't know. We are not sure at the moment,
One final question.
and they don't want these aircrafts. They don't want these aircrafts to be grounded pending the investigation. That
Right.
is the whole idea.
That's a very important,
The
significant
investigation
point
will
that you're
carry on.
making, Captain.
But pending the investigation, they don't want the aircrafts to be grounded.
Absolutely. Captain Kanani, that's a very significant point that you're making. One final question before I let you go. And what is extremely disheartening at this point in time is that how time and again the pilots are being targeted. You have the behemoths who are out there because the pilots are no longer here to defend themselves. And the purpose of really bringing you here on this broadcast is that, Captain Kanani, we really want a voice for the pilots. I want to end by asking you, since you've known him, and you once again reiterate that there is no possibility knowing him, what is it that you would like to tell all those who are watching tonight as far as Captain Sumeet Sabharwal is concerned, and why no pilot with the kind of flying experience that he has would have done something like this, and where does this belief
I
really stem
believe
from?
that Sumit is he's a very mature and, like I said, he's a very sober person. He would not do something as rash as what people are trying to put the blame on him. he would not do, in my opinion. And he has been a commander. After that, he's become a trainer. He's been training pilots, and all these things. They when they make you a trainer, they check your psychology also. They take your interview, they check your psychology, they check how you deal with the opposite person. Are you what kind of methods do how do you uh, train people? They check you at every stage, and then he's become a qualified trainer. And now once you become a qualified trainer, you have all these things. You you simply cannot, the training is always there, and you simply cannot ignore all that and say that the senior guy must have switched off. I would say even the first officer is also not part of this. They are just doing this to protect the airline. At this stage, it is too premature to say whose fault it is, or rule out the possibility of anybody like the aircraft or the Air India or anything. It is not possible to play this narrative at this stage. We have very little data based on which people are trying to come to conclusions. At the moment, we have to explore all the possibilities. I agree. But we should first have more data for that before we can actually comment and believe that it has been done by a pilot. We should have actually more data. Even if you turn a switch in the cockpit, it is recorded. The clicks come. These clicks are also recorded. It is the CVR is very powerful. It's got four or five channels through which all this data is, all these voices are recorded.
Right.
So it is not possible that even a whisper goes away without it being recorded.
Well, thank you very
I
much,
feel they are just being very premature in blaming this, and I feel it's very wrong to push it on the pilots just because they are dead.
Well, thank you very much, Captain Kanani, for agreeing to speak to us. And I believe what you have done is a huge, huge favor to the entire pilot community, because it is very unfortunate that no one was really coming forward and really speaking their mind. But Captain Kanani, you finally decided to break the silence, speak on behalf of the entire family, and more importantly, exposing what many would say the lacuna within the Ministry of Civil Aviation, the DGCA, as well as the airline. Thank you very much.